All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Kai Laveo channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like the video, and pretty much Diddy, celebrity lifestyle. We all knows what comes with this to average people that get soaked up into it, right? Especially for the women. And let's just face it, most women will do anything for money. It doesn't matter how nasty it is. It doesn't matter. As long as it's a large lifestyle that they know that they can never do on their own, meaning earn on their own or get to that level. A lot of times, if they're trying to live a certain lifestyle, a lot of times they're going to have to find a man to get them there or put them through that. So part of Diddy's case is being thrown out. That's what they're trying to say. But let's see what's going on.
And the judge in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial is expected to decide this morning whether to throw out a portion of last week's testimony. It concerns a witness who was called after Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, finished testifying on Friday. CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi joins us now here in Studio 57 in New York with more on this. Caroline, good to see you. So explain what testimony may be thrown out and why.
Yeah, Chanel, it's looking more and more like that testimony will not be thrown out. Obviously, last week was all about the star witness, Cassie Ventura, star victim, I should say. She's victim number one.
You guys, she's not a victim. How the hell are you a victim to something that you signed up for? And see, let's face it, when it comes to trafficking and being a victim, a lot of times when it comes to sex trafficking, a lot of times they're not trafficked. A lot of times it's by choice. I'm not saying that people don't get trafficked, but a lot of times it's a cover up to use as an excuse to get out of something. Like they have this hotline now for if you know of trafficked victims, whatever. There's a hotline and a service for it, right? But a lot of times when these people go into these industries by choice and they know, like let's say they get tired of it, they could use it as a victimhood, as an excuse to get out of it, and they get pampered afterwards, right? Like let's say they get sent back to wherever they're from. They're not going to be criminalized. Like let's say a good example for like in massage parlors, they get shut down when they get accused of being trafficked for trafficking. The people that are running those places, a lot of times the victims aren't trafficked by choice. A lot of times they volunteered to be trafficked. So a lot of times it's by choice too. It's not by force all the time. But for Cassie Ventura, it was by choice. So that's why I don't feel bad for a lot of these women
in that government indictment. But the testimony from Dawn Richard was meant to corroborate some of Cassie's abuse. And part of that corroboration was an incident that she testified about when Diddy actually, she alleged, hit Cassie with a skillet. She was making eggs. He got, enraged and hit her with a skillet. Now,
and stayed by his side. I'm gonna say it again. It was by choice. She put up with all the abuse over a lifestyle that her parents were never able to give her. That's why at a young age, she ran off with him. But then another reason why I don't feel sorry for these women are a lot of these parents are at fault. It's the parents' fault for putting them through that. So that's something you have to consider too. Okay, who's calling me? But yeah, anyway. So she got hit in the head with a skillet, and I heard that Diddy has an anger issue. He has a short temper. I even saw a video of him dragging her or another girl out in the hallway. Crazy.
She also testified that thereafter, Diddy told her that people who spoke about these types of things tend to disappear, and that she took that as a threat on her life. The defense attorneys, rightfully so, objected to a lot of this testimony, saying much of it was hearsay. In trials, there are very strict rules of evidence. The judge is concerned that a lot of these now corroborating witnesses may be veering into hearsay, gossip. You only want witnesses to testify, and they're only allowed to testify to things that they directly saw or heard. So that's part of this objection, as well as this statement that Diddy apparently made to her. We're already seeing the defense today really try to get into those inconsistencies in Rashard's testimony about whether did she actually witness this abuse or did she just see perhaps the aftermath of it. So that's kind of the issue here. The issue is the scope of the testimony. It does seem that the judge is going to allow that.
You know, the crazy thing about this is one of my best friends a while back used to envy Diddy. Like, he even kind of looked like Diddy. And he used to call himself Diddy. So one day we were out at a social gathering and one of our other friends' parents told him that he looked like Diddy. Oh my God, damn. That went off the charts quick. And he really thought he was a boss. But if you would have seen this dude with glasses on, I don't have any pictures at the moment, but he does look like he could be Diddy's brother. But yeah, that was back in the day.
That testimony to stand on Friday, but going into more of this testimony today, there may be a sort of a tighter scope around what they can testify to.
Yeah, and I wonder, because you mentioned this, Cassie finishing her days-long stretch of emotional testimony last week, and how will her testimony then impact how the case moves forward?
Yeah, she was a very credible witness, I do have to say. Obviously testified to years of abuse. The defense is already acknowledging that this was a domestic.
Years of abuse by choice. I'm tired of all this victimhood shit, man. A lot of the shit that these girls do is by choice, and they dealt with it for a certain reason. Why is she crying out for help now out of all this time? And she's pregnant too?
Violence relationship. The question is, can the prosecution prove that this was sex trafficking, that this was a RICO conspiracy? So you'll see witnesses this week like Cassie's mother, her best friend of over 17 years, corroborating this information about the abuse. Now, the defense is saying, all right, there were instances of abuse, but how is that relevant necessarily to force, fraud, or coercion relating to sex trafficking? So that's kind of what the argument is here. The defense is saying these are just bad acts witnesses. We call them bad acts witnesses because traditionally that type of testimony is not allowed in trials when that specific conduct isn't being charged. He's not being charged with domestic violence or assault in this case. So that will be an issue coming up. But I think it's all about corroboration this week.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to make. And Caroline, also want to ask just about next steps. Are there any other key witnesses that you'll be expecting to hear from?
Yeah, certainly. Remember, there are other victims in this case. There are other co-conspirators in this case that haven't been charged. So we're expected to hear from personal assistants and...
To be honest with you, this whole case is a waste of time. Oh my God.
Chefs, things like that, to Diddy, and whether or not they are sort of victims as well as co-conspirators. That'll be maybe a fine line to draw, but certainly with information about drug use. Remember, we heard about that.
I mean, you remember all the groups? Remember all the music groups back in the day? Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the Commodores and all that, the Icy Brothers and all that. I'm not saying that each and every one of those groups did drugs, but there's a lot of drugs that go on in the studios while they're recording these songs and everything, right? Like behind the scenes, there's a lot of crack and cocaine being snorted up the nose, right? That includes having a lot of women in the lobby, you know, just hanging out. Like a underground, I wouldn't say club, but just exclusive for whoever could get in. If you can get in, you can get in. If you can't, then oh well. But it was a lot of women that hung around these guys in the studios and the lobbies, and they just did whatever. Hung out all night, drunk all night, cracked it up all night. And these women already know what they're getting themselves into. But that's why I'm saying a lot of this trafficking shit is a lie. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but a large portion of it is by choice. Some people allow themselves to purposely get trafficked for a certain reason. And when all falls down, they could just walk up and say, oh, I'm a victim, this person did this and this and that. That's why I'm saying, why is this case even a big deal? Diddy is like the East Coast version of Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre ran the West and Diddy ran the East. The only difference was Dr. Dre was a lot smarter, even though he did get divorced, raped. But 50 Cent always said Diddy was a weirdo. And now it's coming out. Diddy parties, freak-offs, etc., etc.
Potential arson, obstruction of justice. Remember, those are more of the elements involved in this racketeering conspiracy that the government really hasn't gotten on the table yet, and I would expect we would hear.
And then just keep in mind, people with money always treat people like shit. They either treat them like shit or they're trying to control them with their money. But these women don't care because they know that they could do, all they have to do is open up their legs and they'll get everything they want. Instead of having some real hard work to get to a certain level in life. So it's kind of hard to feel bad for these people because they pretty much put themselves in these situations with the help of their parents too. But anyway, this is Kai DeVeo. I'll catch you on the next one. This trial's a waste of time. Peace.